All right, what's going down? Welcome to episode 1.3. I'm Genaro. That's Duran. What we're going to be doing today is pretty much a conversation what we had from episode 2, and that goes with each division's their best additions, their biggest losses, as well as our favorite draft picks. So today we're going to be covering the AFC West, and the AFC West. The teams that we're going to go in order is Denver Broncos, Kansas City Chiefs, Los Angeles Chargers, and the Las Vegas Raiders. Okay, to start off, we got the Denver Broncos, and if you want to go ahead and start us off with their best additions.
Their best addition, I went with free agent on this one, A.J. Bouye from Jacksonville. It could have been Jerry Jeudy here. But I've seen wide receivers in the first round might take a little bit of time to develop, especially with the limited practice that they might have this year. But A.J. Bouye is a veteran. They needed help at the position with the departure of Chris Harris Jr. Bouye took a step back in 2019 like most of the Jaguars, but he had 3 consecutive years of great production, including 2 PFF top 10 years. He's only 28 years old. I expect him to rebound and come in and take that number 1 corner spot for Denver.
All right, nice. With my favorite addition of the team, I went with Jarrell Casey because I feel like they got a steal from the Tennessee Titans, only giving up a 7th-round pick for Jarrell Casey, a veteran player, starter on that defensive line, and what he produced last year was his 26 those were solo, and then he had 5 tackles for loss and 10 QB hits. What I think he ultimately brings is that leadership on that defensive line, which they already got. Helps out Bradley Chubb and Von Miller. Takes a bunch of blocks from him. So I think frees up a lot of lanes for those pass rushers to help him get home to that quarterback. I couldn't express more how much of a steal that was. Only picking up a 7th rounder. Giving up a 7th rounder for him for a Pro Bowl for the past since 2015. He's made it to every Pro Bowl, so wow. They got themselves a hell of a player. Yeah, especially teaming up with Vic Fangio too, which I know from experience watching him being the coordinator for the 49ers, how he likes to scheme up those defensive lines, whether it be stunts or whatnot. I think he got himself a great player there. All right, so their biggest losses for the Denver Broncos, who do you got?
Just to piggyback off the A.J. Bouye addition, I got Chris Harris Jr., the cornerback, going to the Chargers. I think that was their biggest loss. I mean, he's arguably one of the top slot cornerbacks in the league. PFF ranked him top 10 6 out of 9 years. He's just a staple of that Broncos defense, playing 98% of the snaps. He led all Bronco cornerbacks in tackles, pass deflections, and interceptions. He won't be easy to replace, but I think they have a little bit of faith in their second-year cornerback from Florida, Duke Dawson. So he'll have to take over the slot duties there.
Well, they also got Bryce Callahan, so I think this relieves a little bit more of pressure from losing Chris Harris Jr. But, Chris Harris Jr. is my, I think that's the biggest loss to them as well. He was the number 1 slot corner in the game, and trying to replace him with Bryce Callahan, who's coming off an injury, that's going to be a tough task. So, yeah, it's going to be tough for them to replace that guy named Chris Harris. Let's go ahead and go with their favorite draft choice. Who do you got?
My favorite draft pick was Jerry Jeudy, wide receiver from Alabama. He was my number 1 receiver on my list, mainly because I value route separation so much. His routes and speed and everything just combined together made him my favorite wide receiver in the draft. He gives Drew Lock a chance to succeed. The Broncos' pass offense ranked number 28 last year with only 16 passing touchdowns. Pair him with Cortland Sutton and 2nd-round pick KJ Hamler from Penn State. I think their wide receiver core has just improved greatly this year. Jerry Jeudy started 2 years at Oklahoma. He could line up all over the field. He had back-to-back 1,000-yard receiving yard seasons, and I think he could be an immediate impact.
Yeah, that was definitely one of my favorite draft choices as well. It was either him or Nati Muti, the offensive guard from Fresno State.
Okay.
I think he just brings in that big force in the middle right there, right next to their next draft choice as well as Lord Cushenberry. So it's the guard right next to him. It's going to open up a lot of lanes for the running backs, whether it's Lindsey or Melvin Gordon. So yeah, I think what he brings is just, if you look at this guy's tape, I mean, he just throws everybody around. Yes, everyone's biggest knock on him was his injuries, but if you look at his injury history, it was all just freak accidents, So I don't think that's going to slow him down anymore. But yeah, I totally agree with you on Jerry Jeudy. I think Jerry Jeudy goes in there and he's the top dog in that room, and he's going to be number one for sure.
Nice.
All right, so that brings us down to the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, with the Kansas City Chiefs, what they did is they just retained a lot of their players. So pretty much it seems like what they're doing is, we won last year, try to beat us again. So we'll see if that works out for them. So with the Kansas City Chiefs best addition, who do you got?
I went with our first-round pick, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, running back from LSU. I mean, you said it. The Chiefs didn't add many players during the offseason. They did need help at running back. The departure of aging veteran LaShawn McCoy. I just think that Clyde Edwards-Helaire should be able to step in and take the starting position. He's going to battle it out with 28-year-old Damian Williams. I mean, he was an undrafted free agent. I know he's played decent the last couple years, but I just think he'll be the guy. Damian Williams also battled a little bit of hamstring issues last year. So Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he could help in the passing game. Andy Reid has never drafted a first-round running back, so I think he just has big plans for this guy. I mean, we saw what he did with Kareem Hunt his rookie year, and I'm excited to see what he brings to the table.
Yeah, that was actually my favorite addition as well. I mean, I could step back and say DeAndre Washington because exactly what you said. They did need a little help at running back. And with Williams, getting a lot of, I think, soft tissue injuries. But Washington, he's been great. He's been I think, a third round or change of pace back over there for the or it was Oakland Raiders when he was with them. He's been there for quite some time. I think what he does is just bring that extra depth to them. If anything happens, were to happen to Williams, he can step up to be that number two because as of right now, I think it's Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Got it.
Any notable losses for the Kansas City Chiefs that you got?
Yeah, I mean, I think they only had 2 losses out of their starters. They're returning 20 of 22 starters from their Super Bowl roster.
Yeah.
Those 2 were Reggie Ragland and Stefan Wisniewski. I considered Kendall Fuller here because he played more snaps than Ragland and Wisniewski. But Fuller's being replaced by Juan Thornhill, who proved he can come in and be a viable replacement. So I ended up just going with Wisniewski. He ranked inside the top 25 guards 7 out of 9 years. He's now headed to Pittsburgh and being replaced by Andrew Wiley, who's only on his second year and who has never cracked the top 25. So I think he just has big shoes to fill right there.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I wanted to teeter on Kendall Fuller, but I mean, they got Juan Thornhill, and we've seen what he can do. All right, so let's go ahead and go down to. Do you have a favorite draft pick for the Kansas City Chiefs, or was it Clyde the Glide?
It was Clyde, but just with they picked the last in each round, so I didn't really consider any of the other ones. He's a running back. He should be able to adjust to the NFL right away. So, yeah, he's my favorite draft pick.
Yeah, same here. I mean, seeing what he did at LSU, it just it just gets pretty exciting to see everyone saying that Andy Reid's got his Brian Westbrook now, and it's just kind of makes me happy just because Brian Westbrook was actually one of my favorite running backs in the league when he was playing. I wanted to say Willie Gay Jr. or Lucas Niang, but I don't think they'll be really impact right away, so you can't really argue against Clyde the Glide being their favorite.
Yep.
All right, so let's go with the Los Angeles Chargers. Los Angeles Chargers, favorite addition. Go ahead.
Chris Harris Jr.
Yep.
And he was the biggest loss that I had for the Denver Broncos. But he's staying in the division. Like I said before, he's one of the best slot corners in the game. And slot corners are just starters in today's NFL. They're on the field most of the time. He gets to team up with Casey Hayward, Derwin James, and Desmond King to make up a pretty damn good secondary. And they're also in the same division as the Chiefs, Broncos, and Raiders. All of those teams improved their passing offenses during the offseason. So he's going to earn his money there and get plenty of playing time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's pretty much word for word who I got to. I mean, Chris Harris Jr., best slot corner in the game. They need defensive backfield help, any way they can. All right, let's go ahead and go with their biggest losses. And I think we agree on here too.
Think so, yeah.
Yeah. So, Big Phil. Uncle
Philip Rivers, I mean, same thing, kind of not as impactful as Tom Brady, but he started for the Chargers the last 15 years, starting every game since 2006. That's 224 straight games. So the Chargers don't really know football without Philip Rivers right now. He took them to 6 playoff berths. He leads leading the team in wins, passing yards, and passing touchdowns. But I think it was just time for the Chargers to move on. I don't know if it's his throwing motion. I know it's kind of weird, like a sidearm type of thing, but it just seems like his arm strength has diminished over the last year. Every throw seemed like a struggle. I watched a lot of their games last year because I'm a Keenan Allen fan. And, man, it was just hard to get him the ball out there. We'll see if they found his replacement with Herbert, but Philip Rivers has to be their biggest loss.
Yeah, same here. I mean, like you said, he did lose some zip on the ball, but the thing is that he was consistent. And, we'll see if that kid Herbert can do anything. Speaking of draft picks, who's your favorite draft pick from their draft class?
It was hard to choose between their 2 first-round picks, but I ended up settling on Kenneth Murray, linebacker from Oklahoma.
Okay.
Mainly because he should come in and start right away at middle linebacker. Evaluating quarterback is just so difficult because it depends on the intangibles. Herbert seemed to be a reach. I mean, if it was me, if I was a Chargers fan, I might have rather have signed Cam Newton or one of the free agent quarterbacks and then use that number 6 overall pick to maybe take Wills or a top tackle, something like that. I mean, their offensive line needs help too. Who they got at tackle right now, Sam Tevy, is PFF's number 58th ranked tackle. So I think that might have been a big step up if they could have brought in Wills. But anyways, Murray comes in, 3 years of starting experience at Oklahoma. He's produced over 100 tackles the last 2 years. He's a 3-down linebacker, and he'll bring even more speed to this fast defense.
All right. Yeah. So with that, I went ahead and I didn't go with any of their first rounders. I actually went with one of the players that were my guys in the draft, and that was Virginia's Joe Reed.
Okay.
I think we picked him in the 5th round. He's a receiver. He's also a special teams type of guy. I think what he does is he's not going to wow you on the stat sheet, but when he gets the ball in his hand, I think he's going to excite you. As of right now, their receivers are Keenan Allen, Jeff Cotton, Jalen Gayton, KJ Hill, Darius Jennings, Tyron Johnson, Jason Moore, Andre Patton, Dalton Sheen and Mike Williams, and then you got Joe Reed as well. So I think Joe Reed is pretty much going to step in and take Travis Benjamin's role, the way he did have. He is a speedster. He ran in the 4.4s. Pretty much, he's a great route runner as well. So I think that's actually my favorite. So let's go ahead and go with the Las Vegas Raiders.
Las Vegas Raiders. I think the best addition was Corey Littleton, the linebacker from the Rams. The Raiders just needed linebacker help yesterday. I mean, immediately. They had one of the worst groups last year. And Littleton's been killing it for the LA Rams for the last 2 years. I've been watching him too because fantasy football, we actually have a defensive player position, and Corey Littleton is at the top of that list every year. So he posts over 125 tackles, 2 interceptions each year. Last year he ranked as PFF's number 8 linebacker. He has the range, he has cover ability, tackle production that's just suitable for today's NFL. Littleton made a name for himself ever since being undrafted in 2016. So I know they also added Nick Kwiatkowski, but Littleton, I think, is just a superior player.
Yeah. Actually, with the Raiders, what I did is I went ahead and put Rob Marinelli. I mean, you know who he is. He's the ex-defensive coordinator from the Dallas Cowboys. He goes over there and becomes their defensive line coach. He joins that veteran coach's room. What I think is, he's going to be a stud over there because what he's going to do is help out Clelin Ferrell, help him adjust to the game, help him hopefully become that number 1 draft choice, which Mike Mayock and Josh Gruden hope to be. And he also brought over Malik Collins as well. So he got that familiarity with that defensive line and what they do expect. So pretty much that defensive line can ultimately be a strength for them. They got Hurst, they now got Collins, they brought over Carl Nassib as well. They got Clelin Ferrell, and also they got their rookie stud in Max Crosby. So their best addition to me wasn't a player, it's actually a coach, and Coach Rod.
Hey, that's a good one. And from knowing Rod Marinelli, the defensive linemen love him. The players can't say enough about him. They're always like his favorite coach. And they always say he's more than a coach. He becomes like a father figure, life coach type of guy, which, hey, they got some young guys there.
Yeah, hopefully he can grow. And, I think the Raiders actually do have very underrated, players on the defensive line, and hopefully he can bring. All right. So their biggest losses, who do you got?
Their biggest loss, this was a hard one. I had to scrape through and look because the Raiders didn't lose many players, and they're continuing to build a pretty solid team. But I ended up going with Daryl Worley, the cornerback to Dallas.
Yeah.
I looked at Carl Joseph there. I know he might be the bigger name, but Worley started 15 games and played over 90% of their snaps. So they're, with their cornerback room still looking a little thin. It's led by 30-year-old Prince Amukamara, Trayvon Mullen, who was PFF's number 56 cornerback, and LaMarcus Joyner, who ranked number 108. I know they added Damon Arnett with their first-round pick, and he'll battle to replace Worley's production and snaps. So if I had to call it right now, I'd give it to Trayvon Mullen and Damon Arnett to start for them next year. They're the 2 youngsters, and I know the Raiders hope that they lead the way.
Who do you think will be their slot?
Probably Arnett. I think Arnett will come in there and do it.
I think their slot is actually he's actually going to be my favorite draft choice. But when you said Prince Amukamara leading the way, do you think that he goes in there and just takes that leadership role from being too long? Or do you think that he was more of a depth piece add? Because I know they wanted to add Eli Apple, and I know that contract fell through. So it just seems to me that due to the recent ad, I mean, it's good depth. I mean, he's a veteran player, but I just don't see him being that star
Yeah,
potential.
no. When I said led the way, I just meant led by these three players: Prince,
Oh,
Mullen, and Joyner. But
okay.
I think that Gruden just likes to bring in veteran players at positions. I mean, he brought in Jason Witten this year. He's not going to be the starter, but he just likes having those veteran guys there that know how to play, know how to watch film, and help out the young guys. So I think it's going to end up being Trayvon Mullen and Arnett. But yeah.
Yeah, that Worley was actually what was my biggest loss as well. I was like you said, it was scraping the barrel at the bottom of this one because they didn't really lose anything. I mean, I could say DeAndre Washington because they do need help behind their youngin back there. But other than that, yeah, I think Worley's the biggest loss. So that brings us to our favorite draft choice of theirs. I already know mine. Who do you got?
My favorite draft pick was Henry Ruggs, wide
Yeah.
receiver from Bama, and
Okay.
the Raiders just needed wide receiver help all of last year. We know the drama that happened with AD. He ended up leaving.
Yeah.
So the Raiders just zoomed in right here and took their first round, or took the first wide receiver off the board. Uh, so I'm guessing that he was their favorite wide receiver. Their leading wide receiver last year was tight end Darren Waller, who, I mean, that just won't cut it as the number one passing option. Their number one wide receiver was Tyrell Williams with only 650 yards. He ranked outside of PFF's top 50 wide receivers. So Ruggs comes in. He's a field stretcher. He's a special teams guy. He averaged one touchdown every 4.1 catches. He has that classic Raiders speed. He should be their top playmaker.
Yeah. Earlier when we were talking about the Los Angeles Chargers, they talked about having a team of my guys when it comes to the draft. And this year, actually leading the way for that was Amik Robinson. And they picked up Amik Robinson. Actually, I feel like they got a steal for him as well. Amik Robinson, he's only 5'8", about a $185 from La Tech. But I'm going to tell you what, this kid is feisty. I mean, watching tape of him, I mean, us being Texas fans, we actually watched him choke. Choke Colin Johnson is actually 6'6" at the line of scrimmage, and that was pretty amazing to see. This kid's a scrapper. He reminds me of what's that cornerback's name? He's kind of a pesty type of guy. He's there all the time. Cortland Finnegan. That's who he reminds me of. He's not really like I know he's going to kick your ass type of way, but he's just feisty. He's always there. He's a pest. If he was a basketball player, I would say that he was Matt Barnes. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Great defense, very sticky, and he'd be on you right away. For his best trait, obviously, is his ball skills. When I was watching him, I guess his worst trait would be his height. But if you stick him down at the nickel, I think that he can stick with anybody for sure. But yeah, they need help at the cornerback position. I mean, last year they did draft Isaiah Johnson, who didn't really do much. They need help next to Trayvon Mullen. And yes, they did draft David Arnett in the first round, which I didn't really agree with. I thought that he was going to go a little bit later, not in the first. But, I
Yep.
mean, that's what happens when you have multiple first-round picks. Yeah, my favorite draft choice for them is Amik Robinson, especially with bottom at. Let's let my producer pull this up real quick to where he got.
Yeah, I had to. I just
Actually got drafted.
that was my first time reading a little bit about him. 5'8", so yeah, he might be their slot guy there. I mean, he's pretty small, but if he's scrappy enough, he'll be able to start.
Yeah, I actually had him going in round 3, and I was hoping that the Niners would grab him only because K'Waun Williams' contract's up after this year. But so I was hoping that we can grab him in the 3rd. But he actually lasted to round 4, and that's where they got him at.
Nice.
Round 4, pick 139.
Nice. All right. Well, that wraps it up for the AFC West. Be sure to watch our previous episode, number 2, for AFC East. And we'll get back to you next week.
Yeah, sounds good. See you guys later.